Outlet Liquor is your place to buy a case. Stock up and save when you shop the lowest prices available every day at Outlet Liquor. You never have to wait for a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. Only at Outlet Liquor.
What's your outlet?
Welcome, everybody, to I'll Hang Up and Listen. I am Duane, the host of Two Goalies, One Mike, joined by producer Steve after an 8th straight miserable-to-watch loss from the Buffalo Sabres to the Toronto Maple Leafs, 5-2. The dark guy was right. And we're also left just sitting here just shaking our heads and, it's the same old Sabres from the previous 3 weeks. It's just like, no physical play, no urgency, no desperation. I really don't know what to think anymore. Where has the team from October gone, to say the least? And I'm just sick and tired of watching guys puck watch. Puck watching. That's all this blue line does. If your name isn't Owen Power or Rasmus Dahlin, that's all you do is puck watch. I mean, Steve, you brought it up before we went live that, Henry Jokiharju was probably responsible for 3 of the goals.
Yeah. Just constantly out of position, constantly a step behind the play because he's fucking watching the play instead of being an active part of it. And, don't get me wrong, I love watching hockey, but if I were playing hockey, I'd have to play more to watch. But, yeah. Once again, I mean, there were definitely – again, this is another one of those situations where, although the score sheet would say otherwise, just in basic terms, you can't pin this particular loss on UPL. He came up pretty big on a couple quality chances, in all alone. For his first outing in the NHL of the year, there were definitely some moments that could have shifted momentum where it could have just been like a 7-2 game instead, and he kept us in it. But yeah, I mean, he just like what happens to him in Rochester sometimes, he got very little to no relief from the blue line. And again, that comes in part to having your 2 most talented defensemen paired together. And then the last 2 pairings are just kind of fed to the wolves. I think it was a Bryson and or was it Bryson Labushkin than Jokiharju Fitzgerald, or was it just I don't even know, but just any combination of those 4 players together was just simply not going to get it done. And it was just endlessly fucking frustrating. And, I mean, the offensemen, obviously the line you want to see showed up. I mean, Alex Tuch gets that first goal, but of course that was also off a nice shot from Cousins, who, again, I was saying in our previous show earlier today has been feeling a little bit snake bitten. He's had a couple unlucky bounces go off his skates and his sticks. And yeah, if he doesn't rip that shot and do something different on the power play, then rather than just feed Tage Thompson for another one-timer, that goal doesn't go in. And he tries something different, and it actually paid off. I mean, granted, we're talking about 2 goals on 20 power plays in the last 4 games, I think was something that was quoted. So let's not get too fucking excited. But hey, you don't always have to give the puck to Tage to score a goal on the power play. That plan works, but it only works if everyone doesn't know that that's exactly what the fuck you're going to do every single time. It becomes predictable. Everyone's going to be able to defend it. You're just going to lose.
You saw a couple times Murray was ready for it.
Yeah.
Something has to be done dramatically to fix the blue line and your special teams on this team. And, I look at guys like Matt Ellis, who's behind the bench with Granato. It's just like, Matt Ellis is a hardworking player. I'm sure there is some respect level there in the locker room for him. Donnie's come a long way with that group of assistants. But at what point do you call up Michael Pekka to be an assistant on this bench? Because he's had a lot of success in special teams. He's had a lot of success, offensively down in Rochester in development. And he is a good hockey mind. And, I would love to see him more around a guy like Dylan Cousins a lot more, because I've said it on this show and Two Goalies with Mike so many times. Dylan Cousins reminds me a lot of Michael Pekka. And if you can get that guy to help further develop a player that he shows a lot of, not just shows a lot of promise, but shows a lot of characteristics that you played with throughout your career, then I don't understand, why that would hurt. Like, I mean, I know you want that guy down in Rochester as well, working with the young talent, talent that you're very familiar with. But it's becoming mind-numbing to watch the same shit, the same old Sabres every single game. You're puck watching. The defensemen are allowing the forwards to get behind them. You're not controlling your gaps. You're playing with I know people are going to say that I'm sexist. You're playing with a person in front of the net, man. You are not playing a physical game of hockey at all, and it's becoming infuriating to see guys just have their way with us in front of our own net. And I'm not even talking about the defensive zone. It's just it's mind numbing. So when does this end? Like you losing Samuelson for an extended amount of time, it shouldn't be this bad. You should be able to play and still be successful and win hockey games without Matthias Samuelson. It's so fucking infuriating. And to lay an egg, again, we said this on episode 110 earlier today, you're staring 8 losses in a row directly in the face, and it's against a rival, a team that you usually come very energized to play against. You had a huge win against them at the end of the season last year in the Winter Classic, and you come in here and you lay a fucking egg. After that first shift, you saw Tage Thompson dancing around with the puck, created a great scoring chances. Sometimes I feel like he's the only one that comes ready to play, and at least offensively, and it's disgusting.
Yeah, again, I didn't have too many complaints with the first 2 lines of the forward core. Obviously, Tage Thompson came to play. There was that one particular instance where he just had like 3 dangles in a row and still got a shot off with 2 people crowding him. But yeah, I've seen multiple tweets at this point that guys like Casey Middlestat and Victor Olofsson are getting more ice time than Krebs, Quinn, Peterka, Asplund. Like it just doesn't make sense why guys, both from an eye test perspective and an analytics perspective, who are just not doing well, are getting prioritized ice time, that are getting those looks and are being deployed in situations where like some offense is of a desperate need, when it's very clear, again, from both sides of the aisle, like the numbers nerds and the eye test people, we all agree the Victor Olofsson, Casey Middlestat, doesn't matter who you put in between them, combo is just fundamentally not working. It wasn't working when it was Asplund, wasn't working when it was Krebs. It's just not working. So why are they getting so much ice time in this equation? And like, I know the fourth line is trying to find a new identity right now, which is right now Sheahan, Asplund, and Hinostroza, with both Gergensons and Okposo out. And Tyson Jost got picked up, and that kind of rings a bell to me that one or both of those, assistant captains and captain respectively are going to be out for a little longer than we'd like. But you can't, 2 of our 3 defensive pairs can't be this much of a liability, and half of our forward lines cannot just barely show up. Like, again, I thought Cousins, Quinn, and Peterka, I thought they looked great. Again, they're having a lot of quality chances. They're still just not translating to the score sheet, but like that's not from a lack of trying. They're doing the things you want them to do, and more often than not, they're doing them well. They're just, they're not getting that luck right now, and it will come because those are 3 highly skilled players. And obviously, Tage Thompson is playing out of his fucking mind, just like he did last year. I got no complaints there. Skinner's doing those things that you want to see him do. He's getting close to the net. He's getting under people's skin. He's pissing people off. He's getting thrown into the wall by Matthews. So clearly he's getting under Matthews' skin. Matthews was conveniently not a goal scorer tonight. That was nice. So thankfully, one of our predictions was right that Matthews didn't get energized tonight. Dylan Cousins did a little bit. But yeah, I mean, again, this just all comes down to 2/3 of our defensive pairs are just bad or tremendously bad. And there needs to be an insertion of somebody new, because clearly, like, the depth that we have is just not going to get it done. Like, it doesn't matter if it's Pilot, doesn't matter if it's Bryson, doesn't matter if it's, Fitzgerald. It doesn't matter who. It's just not working. Like, Joker and Labushkin need to be a third line pairing. I don't care that they're both right-handers, but neither one of those guys is a second pairing guy.
They got to
figure it out.
You have to split up Dahling and Power. It has to happen.
You cannot do it.
It's just, I mean, and I'm not an analytics guy. Again, we all know that, but I'm looking at Anthony from Die by the Blade, his latest tweet, and the expected goals for Power and Dahling on the ice there was over 50%. Everyone else was around 32%. Like, do you put Yoki Haru back with Dahling because there's some familiarity there? I mean, again, I'm a guy who, at what point do you, as Kevin Adams, say, I have to shake things up here and I have to make a deal? Because going to get Tyson Jost to be on your bottom line isn't a deal that's going to shake things up. Maybe it takes a guy out of your lineup that maybe you don't want there. I mean, that obviously means both because you see both Tage and Tuck wearing A's. That means Gergensons and Okposo are probably out for the foreseeable future. And that creates a lot of opportunity for other players. It should. I would love to see them bring up Murray to add some edge to this lineup. Give him 10 minutes a night. See what he does with it. And granted, it was development camp, but he showed some flashes of development camp. Me and you were both there to see it. And if anything, like you said, you had a hungry guy to your lineup, a guy who's going to go out there and maybe inspire some passion and some, and like motivate some of these players, because right now it's not happening. It's literally embarrassing. Like, so embarrassing.
Yeah. You can't win a game when 11 of the 18 people go out there. My mistake. 9 of the 18 people you dress to skate show up to play a game of hockey. That's the starting 2 lines of forwards and a single pair of defensemen and your goalie. Again, I don't put this on UPL. Yes, I realize he let in 5 goals, but he let in 5 goals with little to no help whatsoever from the defensemen who are supposed to be there to try to make sure those kinds of golden fucking silver platter opportunities don't happen in the first place. That's the problem. And again, it doesn't matter who you are. Like, Dominic Hasek is probably letting in 3 that night if that's the fucking defense in front of him.
Yep.
Like, good Lord. Like, come on.
Yeah,
like, what do you want?
Like I tweeted out during the game, like, maybe this is a game where you would have wanted to start Craig for the exact reasons that Jason gave us earlier in episode 110, that he's always played lights out against them. Granted, I still don't think you win tonight, but I just don't agree with feeding UPL to this team his first game in. That's a tall ask for a guy who, while had flashes in the NHL last year, still has been inconsistent, to say the least. And I don't agree with him being in net tonight against this team. You should have gave this game to Andy, and then when you come back home, you give UPL a start at home in front of a crowd that maybe he might feel a little bit more comfortable playing in front of for his first start of the season. That's just my opinion. I didn't like putting in the spot you did there, Donnie. Just another mistake on his part. And there are a lot of mistakes too, just from the GM office down to the bench. It's, I look at deals. I mean, you see a team for like Vancouver who's vocally open for business to make a deal to improve their team. They aren't hiding it. They want to make some moves to shake things up. And that's a team I think Buffalo should be on the phone with 100%. Again, I don't know offhand what players are in fact, available. outside of no.
I'm pretty sure the quote was, if I'm not mistaken, I think he pretty much said like Pedersen and Hughes are the only two untouchables. And
Yeah, the only two guys that are.
He's willing to hear a conversation about just about anybody else in the lineup.
Yeah, but if I'm making a deal, like I'm not making a deal for a guy who, once you're healthy, is going to be out of your lineup. I need to make a deal for a guy who's going to come in and he's going to like be in your lineup once Samuelsson is back, or be in your lineup even when Okposo and Gergitsen are back. A guy who's going to have an immediate impact. You need to shake things up here. Like you need, as a coach and as a GM, you need to show this line that type of effort is inexcusable and it's not going to be tolerated. And who are the guys? And again, we always go back to guys like Casey Middlestat, even though he scored another goal tonight. Like that's a guy who next year I think has a tough time making this lineup. Just my opinion.
Yeah. It's tough to say, especially with the wealth of offensive talent that's going to quickly be coming through the pipeline. I mean, some of them right now are cooking pretty hard in Rochester. I think Isaac Rosine and Yuri Kulik both, as of tonight, have 8 points on the season in like barely a dozen games. And those are two rookies in the AHL, by the way. Real young kids, obviously they got to put some size and some years on those legs, but they're both producing at the AHL level, which is like the next best thing to the show. Obviously Matthew Savoy is just absolutely fucking cooking. Noah Oslin's doing just fine overseas. Around 2025, there's going to be a small bus full of fucking Russians to worry about that might be able to come stateside. Victor Nuchev could be taking Victor Olsson's job in every team in the universe. As far as the forwards are concerned, yes, there's a wealth of riches, and any one of those dudes could be kicking guys like, Casey Middlestat, Vinny Hinostroza's, Victor Olofsson's, just kicking those guys to the curb because, one, these guys are on ELCs, and two, they just might be better hockey players overall. The defensive depth in our system is just not quite there right now.
And that's the thing is I think you need to bring in somebody who, again, will be more than just a guy who is a Band-Aid. There's players out there to be had. There is, when I look up and down the lineup for Vancouver, and I know I mentioned it, you didn't really agree with it before, but a guy like Tyler Marge, he's got 1 year remaining on his deal. If you can get Vancouver to eat half that contract, why not? Like Luke Shen, a guy who has honestly been very serviceable for a number of years. He's got, this season, 7 points in 18 games, but he's a stay-at-home defenseman, plays a heavy game, 6'2", 37 minutes in penalties. He's not a type of guy who's going to allow you to take liberties in front of your net. I don't watch a guy like Tyler Myers as often as he did when he was in Buffalo. I kind of check up on him here and there, but also he's not having a terrible season in terms of he's not an offensive dynamo like he was projected to be after winning the Calder Trophy his rookie season. But, he's a serviceable guy with 1 year left on his deal. If you can get Vancouver to eat half that contract, you're paying $33 million for the next 2 years. Why the hell not? It's better than what you have right now in your bottom six. It just is. I mean, who's going to be the next guy? Who's it going to be? Next year, who's pushing to make this lineup? Is it Jacob Bryson? No, I'm done with the Jacob Bryce. He's undersized, and he gets pushed around way too much. Casey Fitzgerald, same exact thing, just at a lower level. Are we gonna expect Ryan Johnson? Even if he signs, nobody knows if he's actually gonna sign. Is he supposed to be the saving grace? Is Lakesonen supposed to be the saving grace? I don't know.
Definitely not Laxon.
Laxon, whatever. I don't care. I don't even care how to pronounce his name. It's just no,
he's not the answer.
He's not. And it's. For me, it's just you have to go out and make a deal for a guy who is more than just a Band-Aid. And I just, none of these guys, in the minors, at least next year, are going to be pushing to make this team. They're just not. So what do? Do you continue to allow yourself to get bullied in your own end? Do you continue to allow yourself to have guys go out there and go through the motions, use their sticks as windshield wipers and puck watch game after game after game, doing things that you should learn not to do in travel hockey, and they're doing it here at the professional level? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, obviously something's got to change on that blue line, and I mean, Vancouver's made it very clear that they're open for business, but I feel like pretty much any team that's facing some sort of legitimate cap trouble would also theoretically be open to business. At least right now, there are still, to this moment, at least 10 teams that are, above the threshold of where you can be at the cap. So I don't know, maybe put a little pressure on some of them, maybe some of the ones that are struggling more than they want to be. I mean, you see a team like, maybe you can pick somebody. I don't even know. I'm just looking at some teams here that might, and that just brings me back to why it's so frustrating that, like, when two teams that made it clear that they have more decent defensemen than they know what to do with, put a guy like Ethan Bear or Mike Riley on the waiver. Why they don't get claimed is beyond me, because you could have had them for fucking nothing. I mean, granted, Ethan Bear went for a 5th-round pick to Vancouver, no less. But
he's playing in their lineup. Granted, they're struggling just as much as we are. Maybe not an 8-game losing streak, and they just won recently against us. But I mean, I have a guy just commenting on Twitter right now. Tyler Myers, no, it's a terrible take. Why? Why is it a terrible take? Because tell me who on this team, not named Rasmus Dahlin or Owen Power, that he wouldn't be an upgrade for. Yoki, how are you? Are you kidding me? At $3 million a year, if they would be willing to eat half of his contract, I would absolutely bring him back to Buffalo for the remainder of this season and next season. Why the hell not? Worst case scenario, you trade him at the deadline. Like, whatever. I don't see, why you're not making a deal. And I haven't even gotten to the center position yet, which I've been harping on for days now, that I didn't address it in the offseason last year. You threw Dylan Cousins into a situation he clearly shouldn't be in right now as your second line center, and they aren't producing. They aren't. Not to the level you want your second line to. So what do you do? Again, that team up and down. If all those players are open for business, you're Brock Besser, you're Bo Horvat, I don't want anything to do with JT Miller after he signed that contract. No, thank you.
Nope.
But
yeah, I mean, that's kind of the rub there, is that they know they're open for business, but I don't, in this hypothetical scenario, I just don't see how they retain any salary on Tyler Myers, especially this early in the season. So ultimately, you'd want them to throw in some kind of sweetener where it's like, yes, we're getting somebody with a pulse who might be better than what we've got in our the bottom two pairings, but we need something else that, even if that becomes the worst fucking thing we've done this year, that there's something else. I've heard a lot of people say some halfway decent things about Nils Hoglander. I don't know. Maybe there's something there. Maybe there's something that's happening there that I just can't see, but I don't know. But yeah, they got to start tapping the well. They got to see who's got something to give up and who. Yeah, I mean, this is honestly going to be the real test of how well Kevin Adams can trade, because I think it's pretty obvious at this point that there is a legitimate need, and ultimately negotiations are going to be well within the other team's hands. So, he's got to do what he can to not get bent over a barrel in those conversations that he's always eager about having. But again, brings me back to you could have had Mike Riley for $3 million for fucking nothing.
Yeah, I apologize. I had to step away for a second. My girlfriend was calling with how bad the roads are. I didn't want to ignore. Listen, Mike Riley, Ethan Bear, that's all fine and dandy. Could have, would have, should have, but we don't have them right now. And clearly Kevin Adams isn't interested. And we can keep beating that drum all we want. We can keep tweeting. Could have had Mike Riley. Mike Riley would have helped us both. Mike Riley isn't here. He's in Providence right now. And I don't see Kevin Adams trading for the same guy he could have had for free a week ago. So with that being said, we have to do something. If it's not Vancouver, who is it with? Because if you're Kevin Adams and you're a GM that's purely interested in winning this season, like you said you were to start the season, then you need to do something. Because you just can't expect Samuelsson to come back. Oh, no, shit, everything's fixed. We got Matthias back. Like, no, he's just one guy on your blue line. He's out there for 20 minutes a night. Okay, what about the other 40? We're just going to put that all on Dahlin and Power? Who's gonna skate with Power? That's a joke. You have to go make a deal. It has to happen. Yoki Haru ain't it, man. He's not. He should get no more than 15 minutes a night, if that. As a third-pairing defenseman. And with the way he played tonight, he shouldn't even be in the NHL. I keep believing Rakeem Davis's comment up here because it really does feel like they've forgotten how to win. And I just, what's it going to take? You've played against some of the worst competition the league has to offer outside of yourself. You've lost to that. You played against one of the best teams in the league and your division tonight, hoping that maybe you could play up to the competition like you have in the past. You certainly didn't do that. So what do you do next? Like, I don't know. Like, you have to shake things up. You have to send the message. And as a GM, that is Kevin Adams' job. And claiming Tyson Yost from Minnesota today is not the answer. Not the answer.
No. And, I was thinking about teams that are kind of in cap hell. And I was briefly reminded that the Minnesota Wild have to pay off anywhere from $6 million to $7 million in buyout cap penalties for buying out the Zach Parise and Ryan Suter contracts. This year they're paying out 6.37 on each, 23-24 and 24-25, 7.3 for each player. So that's just $14 million that they just have to piss out the window because they bought out those deals. It's a shame that Matt Dumba only has 1 year left because, after this is a UFA, he can just walk away. But maybe he doesn't want to feel like a fucking idiot and get nothing for him when he can just, test free agency this summer, because we've seen that happen 1,000 times. I don't know. Maybe they'd be willing to take $6 million off their books for a year. I don't know. And we all seen Matt Dumba play that physical game, a little bit of that sandpaper that, the old heads love, but he's ultimately, it's something new. And honestly, it's something with 4 less years on it than Tyler Myers.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe there's something there, but ultimately you got to start finding some cap strap teams and you got to start making some fucking phone calls. And again, this
one's
is a
asking you
huge
to go make a huge splash either. Like, you don't have to go out and find Quinn Hughes, just throwing a name out there because we were just talking about Vancouver.
Well, everyone talks Jacob Chikrin. Yeah, we don't need to give them the 5 firsts package.
Yeah, whatever the package, it's absurd. Yeah. But it's clearly going to be less now because you're a quarter way in the season and he's still there. So you can't tell me that guy isn't going to help your lineup at the right price. And again, you don't need a top pairing defenseman. You've got your top pair set when Samuelsson gets back in Dahlin and Samuelsson. But for fuck's sakes, find a guy to play on your second pairing. And you could comfortably have Henry down on your third pairing with whomever it is. Yeah. So what's the holdup here? Like, why are we sitting here with all this cap space that you can weaponize, especially in an era where the cap hasn't really gone up in the last 3 years? It's going to go up again next year, hopefully. I'm assuming they expect it to. But start weaponizing this stuff. Like, for fuck's sakes, don't just sit here, with your hands tied behind your back because you're worried about when you're paid Dahlin. You pay Dahlin whatever he wants, 1,000%. But how much money is Dylan Cousins going to cost you on his next contract? Not a lot. You already got friggin' Tage Thompson on possibly the steal the league. If he keeps playing like this, it's going to be much like what you had with Nathan McKinnon in Colorado. You have Samuelsson on an unbelievably team-friendly deal. So who are you paying? Explain to me, who are you paying after Dahlin that you have to be so worried about? Who? Do you know? Because I don't. Sign for the next couple of years. You're not paying him.
Yeah, next year, this coming summer, Gergenson's a UFA. Hinestro's is a UFA.
Also,
Shane, yeah, the next two, I guess the next two legitimate contracts are Dylan Cousins and Rasmus Asplund this summer. Those are both RFAs that need to actually be negotiated. Everyone else is either a UFA or they're Casey Fitzgerald.
And you want to know what? You're probably going to have Dylan Cousins because of his agent. Because if his agent is smart, he's going to have him sign a bridge deal, just like Dahlin's agent did with him. I guarantee you Kevin Adams had a long-term deal on the table. But his agent's smart. He's like, no, you say no to that. You take a bridge deal for this amount of money, and it will pay off in the long run. 100%. I think of like Aaron Judge from the Yankees. Right? I fucking hate the Yankees. I'm a big Red Sox fan. But Aaron Judge had a very lucrative deal on the table last year from the New York Yankees, and he said no. You want to know why? Because he bet on himself. He had 62 dingers, and now that guy is probably going to make $100 million more.
Probably.
Sometimes these guys are going to bet on themselves. You're not going to pay Dylan Cousins a lot of money on this next contract. In fact, you're probably not going to pay him big money for another 4 years, 3 to 4 years. That's a fact. And if you're paying him anything more than $3.5 million right now for what he's giving you, then you're an idiot. You're an idiot. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, again, with him, it's not for a lack of trying. It's just all this effort's not translating on the score sheet. I mean, he's not doing poorly.
No, he's not playing bad.
He's just not doing enough to merit,
he's not
He's not
playing well enough to warrant any type of big payday.
Yeah, no. I mean,
he's a $4 million guy right now.
Yeah.
100%.
11 points in 17 games. It's perfectly respectable, but yeah, it's not something you back up the money truck for.
No.
And again, I love Dylan Cousins. So of all of these young kids, he's probably him and JJ Paterka are probably the two I want to see succeed more than any of them. I'm honestly not worried about Owen Power. Owen Power will succeed. That's like just a scientific fact. That's like about as certain as fucking gravity. Those two he will succeed. But of all the ones that I want to see, exceed expectations, which are already pretty high, it's definitely like Cousins and Paterka for me. But yeah, right now, I don't know if there is a disconnect between the coach and the GM. I don't know if Don feels the same way that we do, that something does need to change, or if he's still just like trying to help these young kids learn and play in the real long game. But you got to learn sometimes by having to take a fucking seat and watching somebody do your job for you by taking them out of the lineup because you had your chance, you blew it. So now I'm going to sign somebody new, bring them into your spot. And if you want it back, hope to hell that guy gets injured because you're not seeing the ice again until he does. And honestly, when it comes to Casey Fitzgerald or Jacob Bryson or even Yoki Hardy.
So Tyson Jones, where's his not lineage, but before he played in the National, where was he?
Where was he? That is a good question, though, isn't it? Let's take a gander. See if we can figure that out.
He wasn't born in the U.S., so he wasn't a U.S. NTDP guy.
Yeah, no,
I could see Don Granato wanting him if he had
St. Albert, Alberta, Canada.
Yeah, so he's not a U.S. NTDP guy.
Nope.
Which again, if that was the case with him, bringing him in, if Donnie had history with him, then maybe I could understand it a little bit. But I mean, he's not a guy who brings a ton of jam to your lineup. He has a career high of 30 penalty minutes in a season. He's not a physical force out there. The numbers say, and again, in that lens of analytics, that he's a good defensive forward, which is what this team needs right now for sure. Maybe he is a guy that you could throw up against a team's top line. Sure, I don't know. They desperately need help with that because once again, you were dominated by top end players and Marner, Nylander, and to an extent Matthews. I'm not sure how many points he had tonight. Tavares, I know, had a goal as well, but I mean, you have to find an answer for teams' top players, and we don't have one right now. They constantly come into Buffalo, or we play away from KeyBank Center, and we get bullied around. We get laughed at and embarrassed essentially. So, I mean, this is obviously a conversation to see what do you do next. that we have to, have, more time to talk about. But, and it's not even here. It's not even just the losing that, I said 2 weeks ago, not even that I'm not worried about the Sabres. I'm not pushing the panic button. What's making me want to push the panic button is just the eye test where there isn't the effort. You're not seeing the effort that you saw in October. It doesn't seem like it, at least. I could be wrong, but you don't see guys selling out the way they did to start the season. Where's Lyubushkin been, man? Did somebody tell him he's not allowed to play physical again anymore? I don't understand it. That's part of the reason why he was brought in here.
Yeah. I don't know. It's entirely possible that he might still be playing with, he might still not be 100%. So I can give him a grain of salt on that front. He might just be here because, at the very least, Donnie was willing to concede that Cale Clegg is 1,000% not the fucking answer. So, Lyubushkin, are you 60%? Okay, great. That's better than Cale Clegg. Have a nice day, and send him back down to Rochester. So again, I can give him a little latitude there. So, once he's back in it,
a question coming from Eric Walden on Twitter. What's your ideal trade to improve this team right now and for the next few years? I'll hang up and listen. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for the shout out there, Eric.
You use the catchphrase.
I think you need to bring in a second line center. That's going to cost you something. 100%. I don't think you have that guy right now. I don't think Dylan Cousins, I'm beating a dead horse here. He's not ready to be that guy. And you need a second line defenseman, a second pairing defenseman, because you don't have that guy right now. The only guy you do have in that situation right now is Owen Power. And once you slot him back down when Samuelsson comes back, what do you do then? Who's he playing with? Can't be Yoki Haru. Just can't be. And you just can't think that when he comes back, at least we got what if Darlene gets hurt next? Knock on wood, it doesn't happen. You can't keep going through this vicious cycle of not being able to say next guy up, because you can't say next guy up because they're not performing well enough to be the next guy up. So for me, it's a second line center. It doesn't have to be a big splash guy, but a guy that's going to, give you the flexibility to slide Dylan Cousins into a checking / scoring line role, because that's the type of guy I think he is. I think you need to, shake up things on your bench with another assistant behind there. Maybe it's Pex. I don't know. I like that idea of having him come on as an assistant and can work with some of these guys like Peyton Krebs, who has been invisible, Dylan Cousins, who disappears. Work with these young guys that are supposed to be a big part of the future of this team, and just help them continue on that path of development, because this ain't getting it done, man. Matt Ellis ain't getting it done. Power play is atrocious. Penalty kill is atrocious. Those kind of responsibilities kind of lie on the shoulders of your assistants, and they're not getting it done right now, man. So shake something up on your bench, shake something up in your for a second line, like a second line center, and shake something up on your defensively. Those are the three moves I think that really turns this thing around. I'm not saying it's going to turn you into a playoff team, but you'll start winning again more consistently. I think you make those three moves 100%.
Yeah, boy, would be fun if we could find a way to convince Bo Horvat to come here in that package deal to Vancouver.
Yeah,
because he's definitely a second line center. He's definitely done that job a bit.
Yeah,
and again, he'd be a fucking fool to re-sign with that team when he becomes a UFA this summer. He would be high on bath salts to do that. I think that's a very bad idea. I mean, that's a pretty fucking nice sweetener, but maybe that's the sweetener for taking 2 more years with Tyler Myers. Send them Casey Middlestat so they still have a center, and I don't know, and Jacob Bryson.
I mean, it's probably going to take you a lot to trade your captain, in Bo Horvat, 100%.
Yeah,
but at this point, absolutely, Bo, London, Ontario kid, I would love to see him in a Sabres uniform. I've always been a big Bo guy, not just because of his name. Guy has leadership qualities. You're adding a leader to your room. 20 points in 18 games played. Like you said, a UFA. I would want to bring a guy like that in, contingent on him re-signing, 100%. I know there's been some issues with his health over the course of his career. Past couple seasons, he had trouble staying healthy. 70 games last year, 56 the year before, 69 the year before that. But when he's healthy, he's a great hockey player. And you're telling me you can add a 60-point player to your second line, and
still relatively young too.
Maybe gets a guy like Peyton Krebs going, gets a guy like fill in the blank, whomever it is going, because I think you're pretty much dead set on that first line of Skinner, Tage, and Tuck. I wish Skinner's name was Tinner, because that'd have been a great triple T type deal. You probably did something with that.
Triple threat.
Yeah, the triple threat. But I don't know, man. With that being said, I don't know if you got anything else for the peanut gallery. For everybody at home, we'll pull up some comments here before we head out. I know you guys have been, the guys like Mauricio and Rakeen, you're always here, definitely giving us your hot takes. Rakeen, I feel your pain, Duane, but they need to rely on people to score instead of Tage Thompson, because he cannot do it for all of you. 100% agreed. Mauricio, Sabres lay another egg, 8-game losing streak. I smell a baker's dozen lay an egg. This feels Thompson, only one battling for the puck. Peanut Gallery speaks the truth, 100%. Shuffle the lines, Granado, bench a few players. I don't disagree with that. Let me coach the team. Let me trade half the roster. We have no depth, no character, no edge, no toughness, no secondary scoring. If you can fix all of that, I'll come. I'll drive you to the arena every night.
Daryl Sutter, coach of the year.
Yeah, UPL is another player, overrated, overhyped, just as Cousins, Middlestat, JJ. I'm not. Listen, Cousins and JJ.
We do not slander JJ.
We're not slandering JJ
on this podcast.
That kid has been great.
We don't do that.
He doesn't have to score to be effective. You want him scoring more often. But as a rookie in his first year, I am extremely happy with the way JJ has played. UPL, I've been a big critic of UPL, just mainly his health. Not putting anything on UPL tonight. His defense been more atrocious in front of him. I can't really find a goal there where I'm looking at is like I need UPL to make a save there. Do you want goalies who can make a save for you? Yeah, I mean, he made a big breakaway save there after you scored. I think it was you made it 3-1. He made a huge save for you. It might have been a shorthanded breakaway, but I'm not putting this on UPL. Middlestat, please leave the Sabres. You're an albatross. Adams, trade this bum. God, I love it. Woof, woof, dogs, garbage, puke, another losing streak. No one cares. No coaching, no scoring depth, no defensive depth, terrible penalty killing. Duane don't care. Learn that Adams is the whipping boy. Puppet Sabres are tanking boys. Oh, man, he's just – why does Duane love Cousins so much? Offers nothing, no scoring, no assists. And he's got 11 points in 18 games on a team that's struggling to score. Listen, I have no desire to trade a guy like Dylan Cousins. I think he has a lot to offer. I mean, he's only 21 years old, 21. So he already plays a lot heavier and a more passionate game than a lot of guys on this team. I just think you just need the proper guidance for him. And I think that starts with coaching. And again, I refer back to my previous point, bringing a guy like Pex, bringing the whole thing full circle and have him come behind the bench and work with these guys on a daily basis, because I think it would help a lot. Jack Quinn needs to go back to the HL with Bryson Fitzgerald. Yeah, he is just full of hot.
That's half the roster there, buddy.
Yeah, I know. I mean, honestly, though, outside of Quinn, he's not wrong. Listen, I have no answers other than what we've been given. I think a trade needs to be made. I've never been an advocate for making a trade, for being reactionary and making a trade for the sake of making a trade, but I think you have to do that at this point. I mean, you're almost halfway to the franchise record 18-game losing streak. You're almost halfway there. One loss away, you're halfway there. You're sniffing it. So, I don't think we'll come close to getting there. I think they who do they have next?
They have Montreal next on Tuesday.
Montreal. That's a game you got to win. It's a game you got to win. Is it home?
It is the last road game. The night
All right,
after
and you
they
come
go
back home against what is
the
it,
Blues.
St. Louis?
Yeah, the Blues on Wednesday, and then the Devils on Friday, who are fucking
So
absurd.
Yeah, that for me, that's a game you got to win. So I'll hang up and listen, Steve. If you got nothing else, be sure to follow us at Duane S39, at 2G1M Buffalo Rome, and of course at 2Goalies1Mike on Twitter, Instagram, wherever, YouTube. Steve, thanks for hopping on with me, buddy. We'll get this up on the channel along with episode 110 and the latest episode of Where the Buffalo Roam by tomorrow for you guys all to check out if you missed it earlier today. I'll hang up and listen. Have a great holiday if we don't talk to you before Thanksgiving, which we probably will anyways. And go Sabres.
Middle Stafford Dumbo, who says no.